then. Hello, Guardian of Stories YouTube channel. You know what? I'm gonna start calling you guys Guardians. Hello, Guardians. This is me, Guardian of Stories, and welcome to another story character review. Today, we are going over one of my characters that I've been working on quite heavily, specifically the character I've made for the Percy Jackson series, Mark Orion, the son of Ares. Now, I currently have about two different stories. Okay, why did I do that? Never. 1 second. Technical difficulties. My apologies. Now, here's how we're gonna do this. Now, back an hour. 1 second. Right. So if you have a bit of things, I'm trying to do some stuff at the moment. All right. Now, here's the thing with my character, right? Mark Orion, I made. So when did I start writing on this one? This one I started making on. Well, I don't even know when. It's been a while since I made this character. Been a long while. 1 second, let me. Let's see. I do believe the last time, the earliest iteration of this was October 18th, 2024. Was at the not really earliest, but that's the earliest I have record of at the moment. Let me go back. That was a Word doc I made for the character for a few other things. I think I might have a bit more. Let me double check. Let's see. One moment. No, actually, I do believe. Actually, the earliest I ever made my character, Mark Orion, was specifically October 24th, 2023. So this is an old character. I say old. It's about almost 3 years old. Now, as you can tell, obviously, he is a son of Ares. You can also kind of see that in the description here. 1 second. By the way, it's not product placement. I'd love to get sponsored by Dr. Pepper because I drink a lot of it, but it's probably never going to happen. Now, here's the thing about the Percy Jackson series that I'm doing. The way I wrote Mark Orion, he was one of my first examples of trying to really write a character who is not meant to take the limelight away from another main character. And I know I had said something similar about Grex, but Grex's story is mostly self-contained in the sense of because of how big the Star Wars universe is, he's not like heavily in with other characters. He's not working alongside Luke or Ahsoka or Anakin or Obi-Wan. He's not involved with most of their stories. Even in his own story and the prequel story where he actually would meet some of these characters, he's not really doing any major event with them. He is the main character of his own story. I'm just not gonna have it be a case of he's like Starkiller and uber stronger than freaking Vader and could one-shot Darth Sidious. I make it so that he still has to deal with trials and tribulations in his own story, but much of his impact isn't going to hugely change the outcome of the whole series. I'm not going to have him beat the crap out of Vader before Luke does. I'm not going to have him do a Starkiller. He's not going to found the rebellion. But moving on to Mark Orion, he was the one I really made to not take away from an already established series and fandom. Specifically because, as you all know, the Percy Jackson books are written initially, especially the first 5, the Percy Jackson and the Olympian series, is written from Percy's point of view, to an extent. It's kind of like he's recounting things. Now, Here's the thing with that: that means a lot of stuff is done from his point of view, and his POV is limited. He doesn't know a lot of what's going on behind the scenes, right? He's not aware of everything that's going on. And as such, there are things that obviously, he is not going to be aware of. He's not going to know character motivations. But he's also an unreliable narrator. As we see in the Heroes of Olympus saga, everyone sees him as closer to a god than a regular mortal or even a demigod. He is closer to the gods than he is to the other demigods sometimes, especially with his power. Now, here's where that gets interesting. Because of that, it gives me the chance to kind of explore how he looks and acts from an outsider's perspective, kind of like with the other POV characters whenever they look at Percy. But I'm not talking like talking like with Piper where she's, saying he's like a bad boy and he's dangerous and he really needs someone to rein him in and keep a leash on him. No. With Mark Orion, I made him to kind of give a secondary POV of the events of the first 5 books. And that's kind of what I'm doing in both this book, Child of Olympus, a demigod story, which is a story specifically for a collaboration series I'm doing with 2 other authors. Those authors are, one second, let me go to my, specifically with Ace of Spades and where is he? Ian Starr. They are working with me on this collaboration series. I'm not going to tell you the series name yet. If you want to, you can check out their works, and you might be able to get some ideas. I think there might be a published story or 2 on the Ace of Hearts channel, not on the Ace of Hearts account, which is the one that. Let me bring it back up again. This is the one that, if I recall correctly, yes, this is the. Actually, let me double check. I believe that's the one that we're using for the collaboration series. 1 second, let me check my notes. Yes, it's Ace of Hearts. That's going to be the one that myself, Ace of Spades, and Ian Starr are uploading our shared works, the works that are going to be part of this collaboration series, to that account, so that it can all be read as a more cohesive series, rather than having to, jump back and forth between 3 different accounts. Now again, Child of Olympus. That's going to be one part of Child of Olympus. That is one part. This here is one part of a much larger series. This is going to be the part specifically of Mark, specifically covering his experiences in the first 5 Percy Jackson books, so from Lightning Thief to Last Olympian, and also covering certain aspects and some characters from the Demigod files, such as certain events that he may or may not have been involved in, or at least referencing certain things that took place in those short stories, as well as this, and with it being the same for the Demigod Diaries. So I have yet to read Camp Half-Blood Confidential. When I do read it, I'll see if I can add that to it as well, but still a work in progress. This is the collaboration series. Child of Olympus, a demigod story. This is his sort of first inlay into that collaboration, his introduction and everything else. This, however, Tales from Camp Half-Blood, The Son of War, is his solo series. This will be the one that is for when he's active. This is his complete true POV, written as best as I can in the same style as the original Percy Jackson books. So it's going to be written with lots of eyes and so on. A lot of his perspective. Still limited, but it's to sort of, again, grant another window into how the series would look like from an outsider's point of view, or rather from someone that's not Percy. Now, here's some things about Mark. Mark is not as powerful as Percy, obviously. He's not a big 3 kid. He is also different from the other Ares cabin kids, and I'll get to that in a minute. First thing you have to learn, though, is some of his background. Mark Orion is older than Percy. He is 2 years older, roughly. Now, obviously, that means and he also gets to Camp Half-Blood about 2 years earlier than Percy, because he shows up at 12 years old, and Percy is like 13, is almost 13 when he I think just turns 13 when he gets to Camp Half-Blood. Or I don't think he just turns 13. He might have already been 13. I can't recall the timeline for it. Let's see, it's about 4 years. Lightning Thief, he's like 13. Sea of Monsters, 14. Battle Labyrinth, 15. Okay, yeah, so he's like 13 years old in Lightning Thief. 13 going on 14. Mark at that point is. Let me double check my math here. Because he's a September kid, whereas Percy's August, so he's like a month. He's like a month after Percy. So, double check my math. 91. So Mark is about. Mark is 14 going on 15. Yeah, Mark is about 14 going on 15. So, like I said, he's not quite 2 years older. But he's about near enough. Well, at least near enough to being about 2 years older than Percy. Not quite. He's maybe like a year-ish. Dang, I'm trying to remember exactly how old it would be. God, it's always annoying trying to get my brain on it, because, and I'll say this: for some of this timeline stuff, it is explicitly a case of. One moment, I'm trying to remember. So let's see. Because let's see. At the end of the series, he's 18. So yeah, he'd be about 14. He's 14 going on 15. So he's a little over a year older than Percy. He's not quite 2 years, but close enough. He does get there. He does show up to camp earlier than Percy, though. At least a full year or so early, and so as a result, again, he experiences a lot of stuff compared to Percy. I say a lot. I'm getting ahead of myself here. I kind of realize I might have screwed things up on my timeline. I need to fix that, but here's my point. Mark is, again, he's a bit older and he shows up to camp earlier. He's more trained than Percy. Granted, but again, he is not stronger than him. Now, for some background on Mark, he is, he is mostly Greek, but also with a little bit of Japanese on his maternal grandfather's side. Because his maternal grandfather is half Japanese, with his father and grandfather having come in around showing up in the 20s and 30s, showing up around the early 1920s to America. They immigrated after World War One. They lived there. They lived their whole lives, and eventually we get to Mark's grandfather. His grandfather marries his grandmother, who then produces Mark's mother, Naomi. Now, Naomi, her mother's side is Greek, and of course, father's side is about half Japanese, half. I haven't decided what the other half would be, but half white at least. Let's say that for now. Now, Naomi, she actually goes into the military, and she is a supply officer in the army, specifically during in 1990 and 91. She is in, I believe it's either Desert Shield or Desert Storm. I'm trying to remember. It's either Desert. I'm trying to remember. Was it Desert Shield or Desert Storm? I do not recall. Yeah, I can't recall if it was Desert Steel or Desert Storm, but it was one of the operations during that time period. Actually, let me double check. I can just look it up real quick. I'm a lot of this information I have written in the actual text, but I don't want to show it to y'all right now because obviously it's not finished whatsoever. None of this is finished. This once I've finished this fourth entry log, which is going over the Sea of Monsters, I will be publishing the first entry log on the other account. I do have this one on my account, and I basically have the exact same. I have a copy of it on the Ace of Hearts account, just so I can have it on both, and so I can work on this while I'm working on my other stories, and not have to flip flop too often. It's not efficient, but whatever. Now, here's the thing. Because it's going to take a while, I'm going to once I've done that and started working on the next one for Titan's Curse, I will publish the very first one. No, and yes, there's going to be a few extra stuff in here that's not just the books, the main 5 books. There's going to be a few extra, and I think that's perfectly fine. Now, one second. Okay, so it would be Desert Storm. It would be actually it'd be both because Desert Shield, and Desert Storm were from August of 1990 to February of 1991. Is how long it took for both of them. Um, let's see. Let's see. Mark is a September kid. Again, I'm trying to go over some of this stuff. My apologies. Let's see. He is September '91, so 9 months. 7. So that puts it at November. That puts it in November. His conception at about November of. I think right. Let me wait. No, December, January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September. No, January, February, March, April, May. No, September is the 9th month. Why do I think it was otherwise? Okay, so now. So he would have been conceived around, actually, right at the end of Desert Shield and the beginning of Desert Storm. So in January, in January of '91, that's when Ares met his mother Naomi. Ares obviously liked her spunk. He liked her personality, liked how strong and how combative she could be. Granted, at this time, this is before there were many combat roles for women in the military, but she was very combative, very good at fighting. Ares liked that, and well, drunk night at a bar. Next morning, you can guess what happened. Mark is conceived. The two of them go their separate ways. She never really learns about him. She doesn't really learn anything about him, doesn't really know what his name is, just knew, okay, some random guy that I banged after a drunk night out, it's fine. Now, by the time the Desert Storm was over, she would realize, okay, crap, I'm pregnant. So, granted, because it's after the military operation's over, she doesn't really get punished or anything. And she doesn't suffer too badly from that. Though a few months later, she will be pulled off of. She ends up going on like. I'm not hugely aware of a lot of military stuff. She would eventually she'll go on leave, have Mark and have Mark's grandparents help her raise Mark because she chooses to stay in the military. Mark spent a lot of his early childhood going from military base to military base, housing to housing, and anytime his mom is deployed overseas, he stays with his grandparents in New York. So he moves around a good bit. Mark, because of his family life, his grandparents and his mother, he's not as, I guess, troublesome as some kids, in a sense. Unlike a lot of Aries kids, and this is more a case of a bit of a unique thing to him personally as a kid, rather than as a benchmark against the other kids from the Ares cabin or the demigods. He tends to be more, I say, disciplined. He's a lot calmer in comparison. He doesn't have as he kind of holds in a lot of things. He's not as unruly, or at least not seen as unruly sometimes. Granted, a lot, at least not around his family. Outside now, during school, his time in school, he is obviously given the same treatment that a lot of demigods are. That being, they get a lot of shit. There are lots of discipline issues. No, lots of disciplinary issues. Lots of issues with grades. Lots of issues with other students. Mark especially had that problem. Around the time he turned 12, his demigod aura came to be. And this aura is a case of all children of Ares, they all have this like aura around them that makes you really want to fight them or makes you afraid of them. Or both. This can cause lots of things like fighting, bullying, and just overall people thinking you're automatically a troublemaker. Mark obviously had this issue, and by the time he's 12 years old and just before going to camp, as as it stated in this story and in another one, I'll give you a bit of a hint for it. I'll give you a little bit of a insert for it. Uh, he's basically like one bad mouthing to it of a teacher away from being expelled because of the amount of disciplinary issues he has, most of which aren't even his fault. Now, what causes him to eventually go to Camp Half-Blood is an incident at his school. A monster breaks into the school because it realized he was around and was hunting him. He didn't know what the hell it was, and he was in the bathroom when this thing broke into through the front of the school and was stalking the halls. Thing is, one of his friends, Isabel, was also at the bathroom in the bathrooms. In obviously the girls' one, he's in the boys'. Mark, of course, gets out and tries to run to a classroom, and when the door is locked, but because the door is locked, he kind of hides in the little alcove. Isabel is slower though. She gets out after him, and around the time that Mark hides and she just gets out of the bathroom is when the monster shows up. I have it as a Lastrygonian giant. Lastrygonian giant, for anyone who wants to know, is for those who don't know, if you see, I can't find. 1 second. Let me go with this. I put Percy Jackson instead of Percy. in like some of the older visual novels, this was a Lastrygonian. Although I think I'm gonna give the description. Come on. This is a better example of what a Lastrygonian giant looks like. They are 8 to 9 feet tall, pretty big, and like to eat demigods. Also very strong. One of these guys showed up to Mark's school and started causing problems. It was hunting Mark, but didn't realize couldn't find him very quickly and mistook his lingering set at the bathroom as Isabel being the demigod it was looking for. Lastrygonians also aren't particularly intelligent. So it basically grabbed her and was going to walk out to try and eat her. Mark intervenes because that's his friend, and and he can see it and can hear what it's saying, which is, gonna have fun eating you. Mark at this point, at the age of 12, his demigod nature has been showing more and more. As an example, one of the other things about children of Ares is they tend to be quite large. They're easily 6 foot or over. They tend to be very heavily built. They all tend to look like linebackers and rugby players. Mark is no exception to that. At the age of 12, he's like 5'6", so he's also quite heavy set. So he charges the giant down and basically rams headfirst into its groin to knock it over, climbs on its head and starts beating on it while yelling at Isabel to run, and she does. Now granted, he has no idea how to fight. This is before he has any training, so he quickly gets his ass kicked. but it gets scared off because of some school security officers, because it's a public school in the US, so it's going to have that, and by his teacher, his English teacher, who was a disguised satyr who helps scare it off and get Mark to safety. Mark is injured and goes to the hospital, where his teacher explains to him, "Hey, this is what you are. This is what you saw. It's best for you to leave." And so, after talking to his mom and deciding, "Hey, I want to go. I've been hearing about the summer camp that sounds like it would be good for someone like me. Can I go?" His mom agrees, very reluctantly, under the condition that he stays with his grandparents as well, and that he doesn't go stay there too long, and that he always, calls in uh, calls in for them. And so they head up there, and thus starts his time at Camp Half Blood. At camp, Mark is honestly not well liked. He hates the Ares cabin at first because of the initiation ritual of dunking new campers in the toilets. Mark was no exception, though he put up more of a fight. He broke his half brother Sherman's nose, though ended up with a broken nose himself for the trouble. Afterwards, though, and about a month or two in, after like a few months, after like say 2 or 3 months later, Mark has a capture the flag game where his team wins, and he actually gets the flag. Now, because of that, he actually gets claimed by Ares. Ares was just feeling very generous that day, and Mark obviously gets put into the Ares cabin, and he doesn't like his cabin. They don't like him because of how Mark is. He doesn't really enjoy fighting as much as they do. He doesn't just like picking fights. He doesn't like being a bully. So he clashes a lot with the Ares cabin. Especially because he's like, "Hey, maybe if the rest of the camp would like us if we weren't dunking people's heads and, being freaking schoolyard bullies." Now, obviously that doesn't go very well. So by the time Percy shows up, Mark is not well liked. And also, the rest of the camp is ambivalent towards him because he's in the Ares cabin. So he's kind of guilty by association for anything they do. However, he is known as the only good egg, essentially, from the Ares cabin. When Percy arrives, he takes on a bit of a mentoring role. He's alongside Luke, training Mark, and I actually have him first meet Percy when Percy washes the Ares cabin out of the bathrooms when they try to give him the swirly. Mark is kind of just waiting outside with a towel and a fresh change of clothes for the kid, because he didn't realize obviously he doesn't know Percy's son of Poseidon yet, and is like, "Well, I can't really stop my idiot half-siblings from doing this, but I can help with the aftermath." So he befriends Percy and helps train him for capture the flag. Before Percy showed up, he really only had, I'm gonna say, 2, 3. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 4. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He's got like 6 friends. No, he's got like 7 friends at camp only. I'll say some of these names are recognizable: Charles Beckendorf, Selena Beauregard, Annabeth Chase, Luke Castellan, Travis and Connor Stoll, and Will Solace. Well, actually, I think Will's might be too young. So, no, he's friends with, God, I can't remember the guy's name. The Apollo counselor who was before Michael Yu in Last Olympian. Let's see. Lee Fletcher. Now, he's friends with Lee Fletcher as well, and they get along pretty well. With quite a few. He gets along with certain people, though not always with everybody. And he mostly just goes through the books, mostly almost like a side character. He's not participating in most of the quests that Percy is. He's kind of in the background. As an example, like for Sea of Monsters, what Clarice, Percy, Annabeth, and Tyson are off at the Sea of Monsters, Mark is taking control, has command of the Border Patrol Force. You know, the group of demigods who's just patrolling Camp Half-Blood's borders, protecting it from monsters. In Lightning Thief, he's actually on Percy. He's advocating for Percy that Percy is no way in heck he's good enough to steal the Lightning Thief from Olympus. Look at the kid. He's Titan's Curse. He is there. In Titan's Curse, he is still there as well. He visits mostly on weekends, though. He mostly just visits on the weekends. So he is there for Nico D'Angelo and for the sparring with the Hunters of Artemis. He tries to stay between Percy and Thalia, though that doesn't work very well. He starts spending time at Camp Half-Blood full time after the Battle of the Labyrinth. After Battle of the Labyrinth, he decides I'll just be homeschooled and I'll stick at camp because they need me. He does obviously lose his friend Lee Fletcher there in the Battle of the Labyrinth. A lot of things happen throughout the books, and he is going through a good amount of stuff himself. In terms of how strong he is as a demigod, he's a very skilled fighter. He is a very, very... Alright. Sorry for that. In case you noticed a skip, that's because I had to add a second section of the recording. Dear God. I don't know why that was so difficult for me to talk. Anyway, Mark is a very skilled demigod. He's a very skilled fighter. He's honestly tied with Clarice as the best fighter of the Ares Cabin. Now, Clarice is physically a bit stronger than him, and a lot more ferocious in fighting. As an example, basically, if Mark gets a broken arm, he's stopping the fight. Clarice, congratulations, you broke one arm. She still has a second, plus both legs and her skull. You're not putting her down as easily. So Mark is less willing to keep fighting if he suffers severe injury. Basically, Clarice is a lot more stubborn. Mark, however, has basically all the powers that children of Ares get. I'll go ahead and bring that up here, which is where you get to see all of this wonderful stuff here. 1 second. Alright, so here you see some stuff about that character. This is also partly in referencing the other stuff, the other series I'm working on, so you guys kind of get a little bit of a quick peek on certain things. This is kind of what I think he would wear at Camp Half-Blood, and especially during, like, say, the Battle of Olympus and the Battle of the Labyrinth. Found this really good thing on Pinterest, as you can see. 1 second, can I get rid of this? There we go. Now, some of the powers that he has, and you can actually find this, that children of Ares have. 1 second, let me look it up real quick. My internet's a bit slow, unfortunately. Oh god, my thing froze. Oh god dang it. Why must thee freeze? There we go. Percy Jackson, Ares Cabin. As you can see, one of the first things that I showed that he has here, that is also shown here on this ability panel that children of Ares have, go away advertisements, is Odykinesis, which is basically emotion control. They can unconsciously arouse feelings of impulsive anger, hatred, and bloodlust in people to the point of instigating physical violence. Now, Mark, on the other hand, has active control. He can actively control some of these emotions to a limited extent. As you can see here, Mark has limited control over the emotions of war, anger, hate, fear, courage, etc. The ability is normally unconscious, which with him normally arousing impulsive feelings of anger or fear in others for most of his life, resulting in bullying and isolation, with some of these encounters becoming violent. After becoming 12 and being claimed, Mark starts learning about these powers and begins to learn how to control them better. He often using this to prevent fights between two campers, usually by making them just angry at him rather than each other. Although he eventually learns how to kind of change that around, where he basically takes those angers and puts it into himself. So now he becomes violently angry, but he basically just leaves the area, so that he won't have to fight anyone, and so that they don't fight anybody. He also likes to use this quite often in training and in fighting, where he'll make himself a lot scarier in order to make people, either make them scared or angry, so they mess up fighting, as well as to help make monsters and and rival demigods in during the war, during the Second Titan War, less want to fight him less, as well as just making them want rout and run away and retreat faster, while also using this to essentially rile up his fellow demigods of Camp Half-Blood into a fighting frenzy, so that they're more willing to fight and they don't, have bad morale. The other one that he has that he is much better at is telekinesis, which here, the ability to adapt various types of weapons quicker than normal. They have the power to curse their opponent's weapons and transfigure any object into any weapon, such as making a sword too heavy to lift properly, turning arrows into rubber, or forcibly disarming an opponent. Mark has that in spades. He is very good at fighting, very good at learning how to fight and using weapons, and he's just absolutely great with controlling weapons. He can make them much more deadly, less deadly, and to an extent even transfigure things of similar size and mass into an equivalent weapon. So a pen becomes a pocket knife, as an example. Next one I have is I essentially have it as a battle cry thing. That's more so something that Ares has that I gave to Mark as well, which is basically he just shouts very loudly. This is also something that Clarice has. As you can see, he unleashes a thunderous yell that frightens and disorientates those around him, as well as causing physical pain via the deafening shout, roughly as loud as the retort of a handgun fired close to the ear, so nearly deafening. Pyrokinesis, that's actually a reference to the blessing of Ares that Clarice had. Because Clarice could actually summon essentially flame that made it so she wasn't hurt, if I remember correctly. I think Frank Zhang had the same thing. I can't quite remember. But those are the ones that he has access to normally. Now, because he has a bit more control over certain abilities, and he does have these two that most children of Ares don't seem to have, and really only is shown by Clarice and a bit of Frank. Frank Zhang from the Heroes of Olympus saga, A Son of Mars. I did take away his ability to do necromancy, mainly because, well, he doesn't use it. So I figured that's something he wouldn't have. Now, this is something I got from Pinterest. This is not my own art, as you can see. It's from DeviantArt. I actually found it on Pinterest, though. And this is what I decided that he would probably look like. Just ignore the Camelot thing. That's, again, part of the other series. This is him about 18 years old after the events of Last Olympian. Like, directly after. This is, again, something from... And this is kind of what he would look like for his, like in Lightning Thief. This is what he would appear as in Lightning Thief. This is also from Pinterest, as you can see. This is a few other things I have of him. This is what Isabel looks like. And he and Isabel do end up together later on, but that's, again, for the later stuff. Now, what does all this mean for? Well, simple. Mark is basically meant to be a great backup character for Percy, in the sense of he's a staunch supporter for Percy, he's a great ally, and he is capable of fighting. There will be certain characters I'll be adding to the Battle of Olympus, a specific Titan. Mark will be doing his own stuff. He'll even have his own quest that he'll be going on during the series and in between the books. And I'll be giving him his own thing that he'll be doing, both in this story and also in his solo series. Now, honestly, I do think that's about. I think that's what I'll call this video here. I hope you're looking forward to the publishing of both of these stories. And if you are, please also go check out my other books that I'm working on here on Wattpad. I'll post a link to my Wattpad in the description below. Leave comments if you want to read more, if you are interested in reading some of these stories I'll be writing. And yes, I'll say this: the same art I use for Sentinel Sabretooth for Mark's overall appearance, I'm also using for my Sentinel Sabretooth thing. That's also why I have a few other things for what Mark might look like for that, and obviously for this. I'll say this: this right here is also art for a character I believe named Beowulf from the Fate. I think it's Fate series. I think it's like Fate Grand Order. I don't quite remember. This would be more what he would look like, say, after Battle of Olympus. But yeah, so these two are what he tends to look like for the main series. Again, this one's shared with the Son of Sabretooth character I have for the Marvel book, but that's more of a coincidence because that's just because I liked both. But yeah, so if you enjoy this video, please leave a like, subscribe for more. Tell me what you think in the comments. And check out the rest of the stuff in my writing playlist and the other books in the other videos in my channel. Without further ado, see you guys next time.